This is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Rainbow Bobble Bag, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description. There you'll find both right and left-handed video tutorials, a link to the written pattern, and links to all the supplies you'll need, plus all the other tutorials I may reference here today. To make this pattern, you will need Peyton's Hempster in however many colors you want to use, approximately 500 yards total though. You can see here I used 6 different colors, and for the exact colors, again, you can go to the written pattern. You'll also need a hook, of course, a USG 4mm, and some stitch markers would come in handy too. Let's go ahead and take a look at the finished bag here. You can see it is sort of a tote style, but a little bit shorter. I'm kind of calling this one an everyday tote. I think it's a really great size for everyday use. It's not too tall. You're not going to lose everything in the bottom of the bag, but the bottom of the bag is itself quite generous. You can see here, this bag is actually made bottom up. We start by making this big rectangle at the bottom, and then we work around that rectangle in rounds, making our bobbles until we get up to the top, where we've got a really simple top and some very simple handles. Now these handles may be a little short for tote handles, but this was on purpose. This yarn is a hemp and cotton blend, and that means that these handles will stretch out a little bit with use. So I've taken that into account. I keep them short now, knowing they'll stretch out a little bit with use to just the right length for me. Inside, you can see the bobbles are just on the outside, so the inside is relatively smooth, and you can line it if you want to. Let's go ahead and get started making our Rainbow Bobble Bag. Okay, so to begin your Rainbow Bobble Bag, you want to start with whichever color you want to be at the bottom of your bag. Then you're going to foundation half double crochet 46. If you prefer to avoid the foundation half double crochet, as I've written in the notes on the written pattern, you can instead chain 47, skip the chain closest to the hook, and just half double crochet in each remaining chain across. The point is to get 46 foundation half double crochets for that very first row. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the foundation half double crochet for you now, and if you want a closer look at it, there is a separate tutorial for it linked in the pattern. So we are going to start by chaining 2, 1, 2, then I am going to yarn over and go from the chain furthest from the hook, that very first one we made, and I like to go ahead and work into that back loop rather than under the top 2 loops. I find it just gives a little better edge for this stitch. Then we're going to yarn over, pull that loop through, and you can see here we have 3 loops on our hook now. That bottom loop right there, the one we just made, that one's going to now be the chain at the bottom of our foundation half double crochet. So now we need to begin the half double crochet portion of it. So we yarn over and pull through just that loop to begin our half double crochet. And still we've got that chain there at the bottom. And then we yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops, and now we've made a half double crochet. So you can see we've got the V at the top, just as we normally do. We've got basically a chain there at the bottom, and now we can continue on. So to make the rest of the foundation half double crochets, you yarn over, and we're just going to stick our hook under those 2 loops at the bottom, the ones that were made there when we pulled that first loop through, just like that. See, there's the hook that was on our loop that was on our hook from the previous stitch. There's the one we yarned over, and those are the 2 loops that we just went under with our hook. So we yarn over, pull 1 loop through there, and now that loop we just pulled through will be the bottom of this next foundation half double crochet. So we yarn over again, pull through that loop to begin our stitch, yarn over again, pull through all 3 to finish it off. So let's do that one more time together. We'll yarn over, go under the loops at the bottom of the previous stitch. There we go. Yarn over, pull 1 loop up through there. That becomes the chain at the bottom of this stitch. Yarn over, pull through that chain. Now we've got our 3 loops, so we can yarn over and pull through all 3 to make our half double crochet. So we've made 3 so far, and you'll want a total of 46. So again, if you prefer, you can just chain 47 and then, make 46 foundation half double crochets, or rather regular half double crochets, however you like to do it. As long as you've got 46 at the end of row 1, you'll be all set for row 2. So go ahead and make some more of those, and I'll see you when we're ready for row 2. Now, obviously, I don't have 46 stitches here. I'm going to be working in a smaller stitch here today just for demonstration purposes. But again, you should have 46 stitches total. Now we're ready for row 2, And rows 2 through 16 are all the same and all very simple. We're just going to chain 1 and half double crochet in each stitch across. So you just chain 1 and half double crochet right in that first stitch, because that chain 1 does not count as a stitch itself, and then make a half double crochet in each one of those stitches on across the previous row. And you keep doing that until you have a total of 16 rows. So I'll see you when we're ready for round 17. Okay, so when you have finished row 16, you should have a much bigger rectangle than this one, but I'm going to stop here. And now, as you may have caught, we're moving on to round 17. Up till now, we've been working in rows, but now we're going to work our way all the way around this rectangle so that we can start working in rounds to build up those sides of the bag. So round 17, before, like I say, we've just been making the bottom, round 17 is going to be our first right side row as well. So I'll show you how to mark that here in a minute. But to begin round 17, it's going to start just like all the previous rows we've been doing before. We chain 1 and half double crochet in each stitch across. But because we're starting to work in rounds now, I really like to recommend that you put a stitch marker in the first stitch of this round, and it will help you out here as we come around and finish this round. And in fact, if you are a newer crocheter and you find yourself having trouble getting your sides nice and straight when you're making rows, even just working evenly with the same stitch like this, it's a great idea to go ahead and put a stitch marker in the first and last stitch of each row, and that way you'll always know exactly where to begin and end each row, and you don't accidentally end up missing a stitch here at the end or working into the turning chain. So we're just going to start by half double crocheting in each of those 46 stitches across. So when you get to the end here, I will come back and show you what we do next. Okay, so I've got my stitches made across the previous row, and now what we're going to do is, rather than turning to work back the other way like we were doing in rows before, we're going to turn our little rectangle 90 degrees so that we can now crochet down the sides of those rows. Now remember, this is the row we're making right now, so we don't want to crochet into the side of this one. You just want to jump down to that previous row, that row 16, and start crocheting in the side of that. So if you put 1 half double crochet in the side of each row, then you'll have 16 half double crochets along the side of your rectangle. I only made 4 rows here before I started my row 17, so to speak, so I'll just have 4 stitches to do. And working into the sides of rows is really just a matter of finding where it looks good to put your hook. I always like to, if I can, catch 2 threads there on the side of my row. It doesn't always work out, but you also just want to be consistent. So there's 1, and I'd only, like I say, I only have 4 rows here, so I can only do it 4 times. You'll need to do it 6 times. So there's 2, and 3, and 4. All the way down here right to the side of that foundation row, like so. So there's my 4. You'll keep going on around for 16 across there. And then when you've got your 16 along the sides, go ahead and pause it here and catch up if you need to. And once you've got those, then we're going to turn 90 degrees again and work across our foundation row. And this is where I really love having used the foundation half double crochets, because it leaves me this really beautiful edge with 2 strands, 2 loops, sort of a V right there to work into. So we're just going to go ahead and work into each of those. So you should have 46 of those stitches right along the bottom here. So we'll go ahead and work right across our foundation row, and then I'll see you when it's time to work up that other side. Okay, and as soon as you have finished crocheting across that foundation row, again, it's time to crochet right up that other side. So again, you'll have 16 stitches along this side, or however many rows you made if you are mixing it up. And I just want to point out, again, we want to make sure not to work into the side of row 17 or round 17 as we're making it here. Make sure you jump down to work down into the side of that first row we made for this side. And then as you come up to this side, you don't want to work into the side of this marked stitch, because remember, that's part of the round we're making right now too. So keep those 16 stitches right in between there, and then we'll be ready to join to that first stitch. Okay, and then for me, again, this was just 4 stitches, so if you need to pause and make your 16, that's fine. But I've got my 4 stitches up the side, and then I've got that first marked stitch, so I can just go ahead and join with a slip stitch right in that first marked stitch there. Before I do that, though, let me pull that hook back out. Like I said, I really like to use stitch markers a lot. And so I'm going to go ahead and put a stitch marker in the last stitch of this round as well. And this is going to come in really handy as we continue, because we are going to be doing turned rounds or joined rows, however you want to think about it, for this pattern, because the bobbles are actually made from the wrong side of the fabric. So that means we can't just keep working around and around for this bag. We're going to need to work around one way and then turn and work from the inside of the bag from the other direction. This is going to do a couple of things. Like I say, it'll push the bobbles to the right side, push them to the outside of the bag, and it will also keep our seam nice and straight and really beautifully invisible. So that's it for round 17. Pull my hook out of the way here a little bit. You can see it's starting to cup up a little bit, and yours should be a little bit too, although not as much since yours will be bigger. It won't be as drastic, but we're making that bag shape, and that's really going to continue to allow us to build up that bag shape. So what we want to do to begin round 18 is, after we've made our join, you can chain one and turn, or turn and chain one, however you like to do it. There, and we're going to be working from the other side of the bag. So if it's easier for you, you can keep flipping it inside, outside, wrong side. By the time it's done, it'll be obviously which one is the right side out, and you can just flip it back right side out. However you like to work this way most comfortably is fine. So to begin round 18, and indeed rounds 18 and 19 are exactly the same. We just chain one and half double crochet in each stitch around. But I want to show you, this is where these stitch markers become vitally important. We were working this way. This was the first stitch. This was the last stitch. When we turn to go back the other direction, you can see how easily it would be to mistake that slip stitch right there for a stitch. But it's not a stitch. It's the slip stitch that joined the round. Because these stitches are marked, it's going to be very easy for me to say, no, that's where I need to begin this round, and that's where I need to end it. So that's where stitch markers can come in really, really handy when you're working in the round, especially for turned rounds like these. So now that I've worked into that stitch, I'm going to go ahead and move that stitch marker up to my new stitch here, because now this is the new first stitch of this round. And then just half double crochet in each stitch all the way around, make your last one in that marked stitch, and join. So we're going to do that twice. So I'll see you when we're ready to finish up round 19. Okay, so you finish up rounds 18 and 19, of course, just half double crochet in each stitch around, and then join and turn. So as you finish up round 19 here, you can see I've got my stitch marker in the first stitch of that round, my stitch marker in the last stitch of that round, and now I've joined and I'm ready for round 20. So I'm going to turn, of course, and chain one, and then I'm going to begin round 20 with a single crochet in the first stitch. This is where we get to begin our fun bobbles. So I've made that single crochet. I'm going to go ahead and move the stitch marker right on up to that stitch there. There we go. And then I'm going to bobble in the next stitch. Now, bobbles can be made in several different sizes, essentially, but they're all basically the same. And for this pattern, I'm using a 5 double crochet together bobble. Basically, you yarn over, go into the next stitch, just as you normally would, yarn over and pull up that loop, yarn over and pull through 2. Now, instead of finishing the stitch, we're going to stay here with 2 loops left on our hook, and go yarn over again and go right back into that same stitch and do it again. Pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. Now we've got 3 loops left on our hook. This is going to be looking really similar to a double crochet 2 together decrease if you've made those before, but we're working them all in the same stitch. We're not moving across stitches to decrease here. We're still in the process of making one stitch in one stitch. So we're going to yarn over again and keep doing that for a total of 5 times. So you can see we've done it 3 times. Now we have 4 loops left on our hook. So here's our 4th time. We now have 5 loops on our hook. Yarn over and do it again for a 5th time. That will give us 6 loops on our hook, and that's how we know we've made enough loops. So we yarn over and pull through all of those loops. And if you look at the way I'm holding my hand here, you can see how I'm sort of pinching those together as I pull through. And I'm going to use my thumb to go ahead and push that out. We're pushing that bobble so that it bobbles out or pushes out to the outside of the bag. So what we want to do to make sure that sticks out really beautifully is make sure that when we make our single crochet in the next stitch, we make it a relatively tight stitch. So we're just going to bring that loop right on down. You can see how I'm really curving that bobble right on over. I'm going to go into that next stitch, yarn over and pull up my loop, and make my single crochet. And you can see I really took some time and effort there to keep that a relatively tight, small single crochet. And that is what's going to give that bobble on the outside of your bag here that really beautiful texture and shape and really help it hold its shape. So after you make the bobble, you single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So there's the first one. So we've got 2 more. 1 and 2. And then we bobble again. That's our repeat. Single crochet in 3 stitches, bobble in the next. Single crochet in 3 stitches, bobble in the next. So let's go ahead and make our next bobble together. We're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. 2 loops are left on the hook. Yarn over again, go into the same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. 3 loops are left on the hook. Yarn over again, go into the same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. 4 loops are left on the hook. Pull up some more yarn if you need to. There we go. Yarn over again, go into the same stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. We have 5 loops on our hook. We're almost there. Yarn over again, go into the same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. And now with 6 loops left on our hook, we're going to go ahead and yarn over and pull through all of those loops, just like so. Then just go to those next 3 single crochets, making sure that first one in particular is nice and tight so that your bobble bends right on over. And you can see, if we look across the top here, we've got that line of V's, just like we normally would do at the top of a row, but now we've got that really, really great texture. So we're going to continue that all the way around until we get to the very end of row 20, where, because we had that very first single crochet, we're just going to finish off with single crochets in the last 2 stitches. So continue to make your single crochets and bobbles all around, and I'll see you at the end of round 20. Okay, so I just made my last single crochet of the round. You can see I've got a bobble, 2 single crochets, and I'm ready to join. But first, of course, I want to make sure to move that stitch marker up to that new last stitch. These will really help you keep track of your rounds. So now I am ready to join with my slip stitch and turn to make round 21. Like so. And you can see here we're back on the right side of our bag and our bobbles are sticking out beautifully. So now those bobbles will tell us which one's the right and wrong side of our bag. So for round 21, we're simply going to do the same thing we did in rounds 18 and 19. Chain 1 and half double crochet in each stitch around. Again, great thing we've got that stitch marker so we know exactly where that first stitch goes and that last stitch, because it could look like one we don't work into, but we've got it marked so we know that's where the last stitch of that round goes. So just half double crochet in each stitch right on around. If you're making the full size bag instead of this little swatch like I am, you should have 124 stitches in each of these rounds, beginning with round 17. So I will see you at the end of round 21. Okay, so I've finished round 21 with a simple half double crochet in each stitch around. And I just want to go ahead and point out here, make sure you're getting 3 stitches in between each of one of the stitches that you work into a bobble. That little first stitch right there on the side of the bobble can be really easy to miss. I know, I've done it many times myself. So just take your time, make sure you crochet into the bobble, then 3 in between, then the next bobble, then 3, then the bobble, and that will really help you keep track of your stitches. So now we're ready for round 22, where we're going to chain 1 and turn to work again from the inside of the bag. And if you find this awkward, obviously yours will be a lot bigger than this one, but again, you can just go ahead and turn it wrong side out if that's easier for you to work. Whatever works. It's a bag. In the end, you can just flip it right back out, right side out, and you'll be all set. So for round 22, we're going to go ahead and start with single crochet in the first 3 stitches. Oh, and my stitch marker just fell out, but luckily I know that's the slip stitch there, so we're going to start right there. So we'll put that first one there. I guess I didn't have that one latched fully. I'll be more careful this time. There we go. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then it's time to bobble again. So you'll notice the last bobble row, we started with 1 single crochet and then we bobbled right away before we did our 3 single crochets. This time we start with 3 single crochets before our first bobble and then just repeat that around again. Single crochet in the next 3, bobble in the next. Just like we did before, but we start with a different number and then we end right on a bobble, and that creates the offset so that our bobbles don't line up straight, but rather are offset on our finished bag. So after you make a bobble, you just single crochet in the next 3 and bobble again, all the way around, finishing with a bobble in the last stitch of round 22. So that very last marked stitch will get its own bobble, and then you can join. Since you won't have a single crochet that you're working at that end of the bobble, we'll want to make sure that join's really tight. So when I get around to that spot, we'll do it together and then we'll be ready for round 23. Okay, as you can see here, I've made the last stitch of round 22, which is a bobble. That means we need to use our join to help tighten this one up and help push it out. Luckily, we're joining with a slip stitch, so that means we can make it nice and tight. We won't be working back into it. So just slip stitch as you normally would, but just make sure that you keep it nice, a nice tight slip stitch here so that that bobble does go ahead and poke on out, just like all the rest. So then we're ready for round 23, which is again, just turn. This time we're working from the right side of the bag, so you'll be having the bobbles facing you and half double crochet in each stitch around. At the end of round 23, that's where we would break colors and begin our next color stripe. So I'll meet you back here so we can do that together. Okay, so now we've finished round 23 by just half double crocheting in each stitch around. I haven't joined yet. I'm going to show you a trick for that in a minute, but I just want to point out here you can see our bobbles are offset. That's what I was talking about. When you start one round of the bobble row with just one single crochet, and then the next round of the bobble row with 3 single crochet, that's what offsets these so that they don't line straight up. So to finish off round 23, you could join and finish off your yarn like you might normally on a project, pulling that end through, but I'm going to show you my seamless finishing that I really like when working in the round for projects like this. Now, if I were going to be going back and forth between 2 colors, I might try and float that color in the inside of the project. Just basically finishing off one stitch with the new color and then holding it on the inside and bringing it back up when I need it. But since I'm making solid stripes that I don't come back to the colors with this pattern for me, I'm going to go ahead and cut the yarn now. Then instead of yarning over and pulling that through to create a knot like you might normally do, I'm going to go ahead and just pull straight up on that end there so that it's now sticking out. You can see I've left a good 6 inches at least here so I can weave in my ends really well. Although I'm not going to weave it in too terribly well here on camera today. Then I've got my yarn needle, and I am just going to go ahead and put that yarn needle right in that first marked stitch where we would normally have joined to with our hook, right under both of those loops from front to back. Pull it all the way through, and I'm going to pull it nice and tight. This is basically going to act as our slip stitch. I've got my first and last stitches marked, so this is going to be our little slip stitch here. Make it nice and tight like a slip stitch, and then go right back down into the center of that last stitch we made, right between the 2 loops of the V. And I like to go under a couple other loops back there too, just to help it secure a little bit. And as we pull that down nice and tight, you can see it just looks like another slip stitch in there. Nice and invisible, and it'll give us a really clean break so we can begin our next color. So now it's time to begin round 24 with color B. Okay, so to begin round 24, we're going to be using color B, and then we're going to join to the last stitch of the previous round. So remember, the previous round we were working this way, so this was our last stitch marked right here. So that's the one we want to join to, basically the first stitch of this round, just like we've been doing in all the other rounds. It's just now we have to join right to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and join here with a little slip stitch, so it's nice and on there. And then I am going to chain 1 and single crochet right in that first stitch. Now, of course, I will go ahead and move that stitch marker on up to that marked stitch here. And you can see the tail's on the wrong side. It's actually sticking out to the right side of the fabric. Not a big deal. I can just fold that in as I make the round and join, or I can pull it in later with my yarn needle. Then I just repeat round 20. We've made a single crochet in the first stitch, so we bobble in the next, and then single crochet in the next 3, bobble in the next, all the way around, just as we've been doing for our other bobble rows. So basically, this pattern just continues on around like this, working its way through each of the color's stripes. Now, for this first color, I only made, as you can see here, 2 bobble rows, but for the following colors, there are 3 bobble rows in each. So that means you're going to go through the repeat of 4 rows. So the bobble that starts with 1 single crochet, a round of half double crochets, then the bobble row that starts with 3 single crochets, then another half double crochet row. That's our 4-row repeat. We're going to be doing those, basically working our way through 1.5 of those for each color. So let me pull up the finished bag. I think it'll be a lot easier here if I show you on the finished bag. Here you can see our first color, we just had those 2 bobble rows. Then we have 3 bobble rows. So we've got the one that starts with 1 single crochet, the row that starts with 3 single crochets, And then we go back to 1 single crochet, 3 single crochets, 1, and then 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. So basically it's the same thing, and you can look at your previous row to see how you're following it. It sounds more complicated than it is. We're just making sure those bobble rows get offset, but otherwise it's just a round of half double crochet in between, all the way until we get up to that last round, or rather that last color, where we just work 2 bobble rows, and then we've got our finishing up here. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up this bobble row in our color B. And I believe then another round of, let's see, do we do another round of half double crochet after that? Yes, and then another round of half double crochet, and then we can work on our bag handles together. So refer to your written pattern or go ahead and make it as tall as you want. Add your stripes, make your stripes as wide as you want. Now that you know the basic pattern, you can, like I say, either follow the written instructions or just work in stripes to your desired height, and then we'll be ready to start the bag handle section, which begins with round 52. Okay, so when you finish up round 51, you should have been working from the right side of the bag, as I am here, and finished with a round of half double crochet. So now we're ready to begin the bag handle section, which begins with round 52. And if you've been playing with the size for this bag, I really encourage you to check out the video tutorial that's linked on the written pattern for making bag handles. It'll teach you how to place these bag handles a little bit easier for you. So to begin round 52, we are going to chain 1, and don't forget to turn. We're still working in turned rounds here, so we want to turn and work from the inside of the bag for round 52. We're going to start with a half double crochet in the first stitch. So that's our first marked stitch here. And then I will move that stitch marker right on up to there. And then we're going to single crochet together 10 times. So, and the reason I've switched to single crochet together here instead of half double crochet 2 together is because I think that when you make a half double crochet 2 together the standard way, which would be yarn over, go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over again, go into the next stitch and pull up a loop. When you pull through all 5 of those loops, it creates a really fat stitch that is clearly not a half double crochet. It's got way too many loops in there. So instead, when you single crochet 2 together, we go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, go into the next stitch after that, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. See how much more that looks like a standard half double crochet. So we're going to go ahead, we've done that once, and we would do that 9 more times. Now, obviously, I don't have as many stitches to work with here, but I'm going to kind of walk you through it as best I can on my little swatch here. So there's 1, and then we would do it 9 more times. You just go into the next stitch, pull up a loop, go into the stitch after that, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. So you can see here, we've worked into 5 stitches total, a half double crochet in the first, then the next 2 became 1, and the next 2 became 1. So we're making decreases. These decreases will pull the top of our bag in a little bit, which just makes it a little bit more secure and gives it a nice little fun shape. So keep making single crochet 2s togethers until you have 10 of them total, which would be 11 total stitches. So if you need to go back and count from that first marked stitch, those stitch markers are so handy, you can count out 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. until you have a total of 11 stitches made. Then, after you've got those first 11 stitches, you will half double crochet in the next stitch. And then we're going to chain 19 and skip 19. This creates the opening for the handles that we can put our hand in. So we chain 19, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Continue on counting till you get to 19. I'm just going to do a couple more here because, again, I'm working on a tiny little swatch. So you want to chain a total of 19 chains. So you can look back at your stitches here. This was the top of that stitch, so start counting there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. until you have 19 made. Once you've got your 19 chains, then you're going to want to skip 19 stitches. So I just made a few here. I made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to skip 7. But if you chained 19, you should skip 19. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for me is right there. So then in the next stitch, I want to work a half double crochet. So I yarn over, and this, it can be a little tricky because this chain is going to want to twist around on your hook when you yarn over. You see how it wants to pull all over my hook there. So I just use another finger of my hook hand here to sort of stabilize that end, and that allows me to keep the stitch a lot straighter as I go in and make that half double crochet. So you can see by chaining and skipping, we've created that handle opening. Now, if you'll remember on our bag, this does have short, straight handles like this. If you're the kind of person who likes a really long handle on their tote bag, then you'll want to chain way more. Go ahead and chain to whatever length you want that handle to be, and then just still skip those 19 stitches along the bottom so that you get that nice wide opening, but you can have really a handle as long as you like. After you've made the half double crochet, after you've skipped the stitches, then we just single crochet 2 together 10 more times, just as we did before. So I'll do a couple of those here. And then after we've got those 10 single crochet 2 togethers, then it's time to half double crochet again. And then we again chain 19 and skip 19 to make that second handle. So if you made it to the prescribed size, those handles should end up exactly opposite, and it should be along the long end here. Again, I'm just kind of fudging it on our little swatch, but you would have 2 handles right in the center of that width there, and they should be exactly opposite. So if you have played with the sides of this, again, please go to the tutorial that's linked specifically about making bag handles so you can see how to plan out and adjust for that. So again, we would just go ahead, do our chains, however many we wanted to chain, skip that same number of stitches, or 19 if you're making a longer handle, however you like to do it, half double crochet in the next stitch, and then we finish out with single crochet 2 together 10 more times, and that would get us, I believe, let me just double check my instructions, yes, that should get us all the way around. Yeah, and then that's it. That's it. We single crochet 2 together 10 times. That'll take us right to the end of our round. So that would mean that we put the second leg or little foot there of our last single crochet 2 together in that marked stitch right there. So that's how you know you've gotten all the way around. So let me go ahead and pull that finished bag out again one more time, or at least one more time right now, so you can see what I'm talking about here. You can see here we had our single crochet 2s together, a half double crochet, then we chained 19 and skipped 19. Those are just left right there. Then we joined again on the other side and kept working around. Of course, we were working from the inside of the bag, so we were going this way, but then we just make those decreases, a half double crochet, some more decreases, chain and skip again, all the way around, so that at the end of round 52, you should have a total of 40 single crochets, because those are the single crochet 2 togethers, 6 half double crochets, and 38 chains. So it'll look a little bit more like this, where we just have these chains hanging out here at the end. So at the end of round 52, we'll join and turn, and then just work half double crochets again. So let me pull that bag up one more time, right here. So then we're working from the right side for round 53, and we're just making a half double crochet in each stitch and in each chain. And I do recommend that you go into each individual chain for those half double crochets. You can see right here that I've worked into each individual chain, and that just creates a lot more stability. You could just work into that chain space, but then you get the stitches kind of scrunching around and trying to move on you, and I think this gives a much finer, nicer look. Round 52 is again, turn, chain 1, half double crochet all the way around. And then we've got round 55, which is our last round of half double crochets. You can see right there, worked from the right side. After we've made that round, then we do not turn again, and we're just going to slip stitch in the top of each of those stitches. Okay, so if this was our round 52, then as I say, for round 53, you would just half double crochet in each stitch and chain around. And then round 54 and 56, you turn, or excuse me, round 54 and 55, you turn and crochet back the other way until you're ready for round 56. So I'm going to add a couple more stitches to this one here so we can see what it looks like to work into those chains as soon as I get over to our little handle chain section. I'm just going to continue working my way around in half double crochet. Now here you can see I've gotten to those chains, so I just want to make sure this is actually that last stitch. Make sure you go into that too. Although, of course, if you miss a stitch at this point, may not be the end of the world. You may not even know. But it's always good to try and get them all here. So like I say, you just want to go into each one of these individual chains when you're making round 53. Creates a much more stable look. So you can see here I've done a few right into each of those chains. If I were to just go right into that chain space, certainly a lot quicker, not going to lie about that. No arguments for me there. But you can see it just has a little bit sloppier the look than working into each of those individual chains. So like I say, just keep adding rounds of half double crochet to build up that handle width a little bit. And then for the last round, we're going to come back around and just do some slip stitches. Okay, so after you've made rounds 54 and 55, then it's time to finish it off with round 56. And round 56, I think, is just a nice way to top the whole thing off. We've already slip stitched into that first stitch, so I'm going to go ahead and just take that stitch marker right on out for now. And then we're going to slip stitch in each remaining stitch. And we don't want to make these super tight slip stitches. They are just for a little extra stability and sort of a really nice decorative edge along the final edge of our basket, or our bag rather here. So you just go ahead and pull your loop through and then pull it on through. Don't have to pull it extra tight. Don't make it, you know, as you were if you were trying to join the end of a row. This is just a decorative slip stitch that I do think gives a little extra stability to these handles. I like to do this when I finish off a project quite often, but I don't want a decorative edge, but I want a little bit of a sturdier edge. So it's great for baskets and bags and anything where you might have handles like this, really. So you can see here how that adds just that little bit of extra edge there and a little extra stability too. It keeps it from stretching as much. So if you want to really stretch a handle, you can also leave that part off. It's totally up to you. Okay, so that's how you make the rainbow bobble bag. You can see here on our finished bag, we've got that great finished edge. We've got our nice sturdy handles and lots of bobbles. This pattern really pops with Peyton's hamster, so I hope you'll give it a try. Again, go to the link in the description where you'll find a link to the written pattern, as well as the yarn, the hook, the stitch markers, and all the other tutorials you've heard me mention here today. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button so you'll get a notification every time we have a new video and when we go live. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day, everybody.